What if I told you that China is building something right now that could completely change how money works in the world, not in some distant future, but right now, as we speak? While most people are focused on stock markets and crypto, China's been quietly constructing a parallel financial system that's making the United States very, very nervous. We're talking about a network of gold vaults stretching from Beijing to Johannesburg, a system so carefully designed that it could challenge the dollar's dominance without firing a single shot. This isn't just about buying shiny metal and storing it somewhere safe. This is about power, trust, and the future of global finance. And here's the thing that should really grab your attention. The US knows exactly what's happening, and they're already moving their pieces on the chessboard in response. Let's rewind to 2022, because that's when everything changed. Picture this. Russia wakes up one morning to find that $300 billion of their foreign reserves, money they thought was safely stored in dollars and treasury bonds, has been frozen, gone, inaccessible, locked with the click of a button. Now forget politics for a second and think about what that moment meant for every other country watching. If you're Brazil, India, South Africa, or any nation holding your wealth in US dollars, you just learned a terrifying lesson. Your money isn't really yours if someone else controls the vault. Countries started asking themselves a simple but dangerous question. If this happened to Russia, a nuclear power, what happens when we disagree with Washington? That question sparked something that's been accelerating ever since. Central banks around the world, especially in emerging markets, started quietly reducing their exposure to US assets. They began selling treasury bonds and buying something else instead, something that can't be frozen, can't be printed, and can't disappear overnight. Gold. That's what they started buying, and nobody bought more than China. For years, China's gold holdings barely moved. They'd buy a little, sell a little, nothing dramatic. But then look what happened when President Trump started threatening tariffs. The chart goes vertical. China starts accumulating gold at the fastest pace in modern history. And here's the fascinating part. They're doing it publicly. They want everyone to see. China could easily buy gold in secret through private channels, but they're not. They're telegraphing to the entire world, look at all this gold we're stacking up. We're getting off US treasuries. We're building something different. According to official reports, the People's Bank of China holds around 2,300 tons of gold. But analysts at Bloomberg, JP Morgan, and the World Gold Council estimate the real number is probably between 3,500 and 5,000 tons when you include what's held by state banks and sovereign funds that aren't publicly disclosed. Some estimates from ANZ Bank even suggest it could be as high as 5,500 tons. That would make China the second largest gold holder in the world, right behind the United States. And the trend is clear: dollar ownership is falling, gold ownership is rising. But something else happened in July 2025 that most people completely missed. July 2025. Gold gets reclassified as something called a Basel III Tier 1 asset. Now, I know that sounds boring and technical, but stay with me because this is huge. For decades, gold was considered a Tier 3 asset under old banking rules. What that meant was, if a bank held, let's say, $1 billion worth of gold, they could only count about half of that value on their balance sheet. The system was literally designed to keep gold as something banks stored but never actually used. Then Basel III came along and changed the game. Gold was upgraded to Tier 1, meaning banks can now recognize 100% of its value. That's a big deal. But here's the catch. You still can't lend against it. You can't borrow with it. You can't use it for what's called repo, which is the short-term lending system that keeps the entire global financial system running. So gold went from being a shiny rock to a more valuable shiny rock with better accounting. But that's where China saw an opportunity that nobody else was paying attention to. The next level above Tier 1 is something called HQLA, High Quality Liquid Asset. These are assets so safe and so stable that banks can actually use them as collateral for financing. Right now, those assets are basically US treasuries. It's the plumbing behind every loan and credit facility in the world. If you're a country and you want to build a port or a factory or a power grid, you go to the central bank and say, you need to borrow money. They tell you to deposit some high-quality liquid assets as collateral, and then they'll lend you the cash. That collateral is mostly US Treasuries, which is why the dollar has played such a dominant role. But imagine what happens if gold joins that list. Gold would go from being passive to active. It could be used to borrow, to lend, to fund infrastructure, all without ever touching the dollar. That's where the BRICS summit comes in. For years, China tried convincing other countries to use the yuan for trade, but everyone pushed back with the same concern. They'd ask, "What are you backing it with?" China would say their economy, the fact they're the factory of the world. And as a bonus, you can convert your yuan to gold anytime. Sounds good, right? But then came the next question. Where's the gold stored? China. And that's where the conversation died. Nobody wanted to repeat the same mistake they made with the dollar, trusting one country to hold all their reserves. So China solved the problem by building what's now called the Gold Corridor. Volatility. If you're going to use gold as collateral for loans or trade financing, you can't have the price swinging wildly every single day. You can't have a system where someone with deep pockets can manipulate the market and crash your collateral value overnight. So here's how China's planning to fix that. Instead of using the daily spot price, they're using something called a moving average to stabilize the settlement price. Let's say instead of pricing gold at whatever it's worth this morning, they average it out over the last 200 trading days. Whatever the average price was over those 200 days becomes the price for settlements. That makes gold much more predictable, much less volatile, and it smooths out the price risk for everyone using it as collateral. Now here's where the strategy gets really interesting, and this is the part that genuinely worries Washington. China's going to use this system to finance countries that need development. Think about Africa. Many countries there are incredibly rich in natural resources and commodities, including gold. Africa produces between a quarter and a third of the world's gold, with more than half coming from small-scale miners. But they don't have infrastructure. Under this new system, those countries can deposit their gold into the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and China, through something like the New Development Bank, the BECS Bank, can loan them yuan against that gold. Then those countries use the yuan to build roads, airports, power plants, whatever they need. China gets to finance development, build influence, and help countries bypass the West and the International Monetary Fund entirely. And they're using gold as the high-quality liquid asset to make it all work. That's how gold becomes HQLA, regardless of what the West wants. Gold goes from sitting in a vault doing nothing to becoming an actual financial instrument you can lend against and build economies with. This isn't official yet, but all the pieces are being put in place, and the United States is watching every single move. Remember earlier this year when the US started bringing its gold back from London? The official story was that it had something to do with tariffs or a big audit at Fort Knox, but that never really made complete sense. Here's what I think is really happening. The US knows about China's gold corridor. They know about the vaults expanding across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. And they're thinking, okay, if the world is moving toward a system where gold has to physically exist and physically move, not just on paper, then whoever controls that gold has real power, so they want their gold back too. Officially, the United States holds roughly 8,133 tons of gold, the biggest stash in the world. But a significant portion was stored overseas for decades, mainly in London. Bringing it back is a way to prepare for this new system without openly admitting that the dollar's dominance might be ending. Because if gold becomes a high-quality liquid asset, if it's treated like treasuries, then whoever holds it physically has the collateral power to fund development around the world and exert influence. It's not just about having gold. It's about having gold you can actually touch and move when you need to. So what does all this mean for gold's price? Right now, most financial institutions like central banks and sovereign wealth funds keep around 20% of their reserves in gold or equivalent hard assets. But new guidelines being published by institutions like Bank of America are saying that number should be closer to 30%. That's a 10% difference, which doesn't sound like much until you realize that across the entire global financial system, that represents about $2 trillion of new demand. And here's the thing about gold. You can't print more of it. Supply is limited. So $2 trillion of new demand could push prices to levels we've never seen before. In October 2025, gold crossed $4,000 an ounce after Trump enacted massive tariffs on China. Some analysts are predicting $5,000 by the end of 2026. Others, like legendary investor Ed Yardeni, think we could see $10,000 by 2028 if these trends continue. Gold's already up more than 50% in 2025 alone. Now, I'm not personally making predictions about where gold goes, but those numbers aren't coming from random people on the internet. They're coming from economists at major banks who are watching the same chess game we're talking about right now. And that brings us to the most fascinating part of this entire story. What does this mean for investors? And specifically, what does it mean for something like Bitcoin? When you look at this from a strategic perspective, it starts making sense why assets like gold and Bitcoin might have been suppressed in price for so long. If you're a country interested in both options as alternatives to the dollar, why would you want the price to skyrocket before you've accumulated huge amounts? What we're seeing now is a split. On one side, you have China and the BRICS countries building a world where money is backed by something physical and old, something people can see and touch. On the other side, you have the United States, the world's biggest exporter of paper money, and they're going to have to compete. If China's system is collateralized by gold, the US will eventually have to counter with something that plays to its strengths. That could be gold too, sure, but it could also be technology. Stable coins, maybe even Bitcoin. Because think about it, both give you trust, just in different ways. Gold represents trust through time. It's thousands of years old, it's physical, it's slow, it doesn't change much. Bitcoin represents trust through energy and math. It's digital, it's transparent, it's fast, it's borderless. China's system is about control and hard collateral. The US system could be about openness and programmable money. For the first time in a modern history, we might be entering a world where governments have to compete for influence through better ideas about what money actually is. That's never happened before. In the past, there was always one global standard, one world reserve currency. But now we could be moving into a multi-monetary phase of history where gold-backed money is led by China and BRICS, and digital money is led by the US and the West, built around programmable assets and tokenized currencies. If that happens, money becomes something countries and people can actually choose. Both systems would be competing for what comes after the dollar. And here's what I genuinely believe. Both can exist at the same time. They serve different purposes for different people and different countries. And when that shift happens, if it happens, you could see both asset prices reprice very, very quickly. Now, when I say quickly, I don't mean next month. I mean 5 to 10 years from now, which on these timescales is still considered lightning fast. The pieces are moving right now. China's building vaults. The US is calling its gold home. Basel III rules are changing. Central banks are buying at record levels. And gold just crossed $4,000 an ounce for the first time in history. We're watching a transformation of the global financial system play out in real time, and most people have no idea it's even happening. This isn't just about China versus America. It's about what money means, what it should be backed by, and who gets to decide. That's the real story, and it's just getting started.